Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Funny, this is a habit now because I always have water up at the podium, and I always crack myself up because I very carefully carry it up here, like God forbid I should spill a little water on my sweater, you know, and I'm the person, of course, that used to be puking on myself. I'm worried about a little water, you know, so how things change. Thank you for having me back. I speak here about once a year, and it's really a treat. I love this meeting. I was really looking forward to being here. A funny thing happened. A year ago, my friend Patty called me up and asked me to come speak here, and so I was like, oh, great, I get to see Patty. And I came to the meeting, and they said, oh, well, she moved away. Oh, okay. So a couple months ago, Fritz called and asked me to speak, and I came here to see him tonight, and he moved away. Is it something I said? You know, so one day I'll show up, I'll be the only one here, you know, it'll be great. Anyway, I'm glad to be here. You know, and I was thinking to do tonight with everyone's so freaked out about, you know, the rain and the storms and whatever, and who else would come out, you know, and just sit around and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee with a bunch of alcohol. You know, I mean, I would go out to drink in weather like this. I mean, Jesus, that's, you know, what's the big deal? Anyway, oh, geez, I'm a little scattered. I have been through the strangest period of my life, or I don't know if it was the strangest. Lord only knows what is to come. But it's just wild, you know. I'm finally in a place where I really am completely surrendered to God's will, and that is really the only thing I'm interested in. Because this is not because I'm so spiritual, this is because I got the shit beaten out of me emotionally, you know, over the last almost 15 years. And it's, you know, it's taken me 14 years to finally surrender, or, you know, be beaten to death, basically, by life. And I'm just tired. And it looks like serenity to me, you know. I'll take it. Anyway, I grew up in New Jersey, which is why I drank, and I come from a very typical American family. Both of my parents are alcoholics. My father was this young man, you know, make your first million before you're 30 kind of guy who basically died from overboogie when he was about 56. He just went, boink, you know. Burned out fat. Had a great time. Very short time, but a great time. And that was fine with him. And my mother was a very beautiful lady who could throw a great party, and she goes out to lunch. You know, she's just fabulous, you know. And always, of course, she just always has a little cocktail at the cocktail hour, and you know, she just has a really lovely life. And I loved what Cheryl was saying about denial. When I first got sober, I used to call home, like, you know, every week or so on a Sunday and talk to my mom just to make sure she was still breathing. Of course, you had to call before the cocktail hour, or you kind of couldn't tell, but I'm a little, you know. When I realized I was an alcoholic, I called her and I told her at one of these normal Sunday conversations I had with her, and I said, listen, Mother, something really extraordinary has happened. I've discovered I'm an alcoholic and I'm going to AA. She's like, oh, well, that's lovely, dear. Well, you know, da-da-da. She thought I'd join, like, Junior League or something, you know. And, you know, so I'm about, I don't know, I think it was between 4 and 5 years sober, and I was talking to her at one of my normal Sunday conversations, and I noticed the time, and I said, oh, listen, Mom, I've got to hang up. I'm running late. I've got to go speak at an AA meeting. She goes, "Oh, AA, well, you're still doing that?" And I said, "Yeah, remember I explained that once a cucumber becomes a pickle, it can no longer be a cucumber again?" And she said, "Well, honey, I don't really think that you're an alcoholic." And I said, "Well, yes, I know." She says, "No, you don't really have a drinking problem." I said, "Oh, well, what about the time I threw up and passed out in front of 200 people at the country club?" She said, "Well, you did have your period." So I'm not really an alcoholic. I'm just sort of perpetually premenstrual. I've got this sort of, I have a kind of major PMS thing going, you know. And of course, the good news is when I hit menopause, I can have a little wine with dinner. Now the big laugh is that I don't know how this happened, but I became a middle-aged person. It's just such an odd thing, and I'm getting a hysterectomy in 2 months. So, talk to me this summer. We'll see what happens. I was driving along the range, and I thought, "Oh God, you know, I just love a little glass of champagne." And I thought, where did that come from? You know, I mean, I'm sober way too long for those kinds of things. Yeah, right. You know. Anyway, so my life. I was an only child. We had lots of money. We lived in big houses. My parents were very social. My father was real political and whatever. It was just a real nutty kind of a situation. I loved what Cheryl said, too, about her daughter being a nuisance. I was just sort of a nuisance, so I became very entertaining, you know, and all this stuff as a kid. And I lived in movies, you know, in my head and whatever. And I can remember when they'd have these big parties and stuff at our house, which is quite often. I would sit upstairs in my nightie, and I would want to hear and listen and see what was going on, you know, with all the music and the laughing and the clinking of the glasses, and it was all so festive and gay and fabulous. And I would sit up there in my nightgown and peer through the banister, you know, and try to get a glimpse of what was happening downstairs. And then all the grown-ups would go home or pass out or whatever they did. And I'd go downstairs in my nightie. I was about, you know, 4 or 5 years old, and I would run around the living room, and I would pick up the dregs of the cocktails, you know, the old half, you know, glasses of wine or whatever, and the old muddled fruit, and, you know, bitters and melted ice, and you know what it's like after a cocktail party. I'm sure you can remember, and or maybe not, but and I would run around the room, and I'd pick up all these, you know, half-empty glasses and stuff, and I'd find little cigarette butts with red lipstick on them, and I would flip around, and I would flip my hair around like this, and I would dance, and I'd like do with my nightie, and I would drink down these drinks, and I thought I was Loretta Young, and it was fabulous and glamorous and so divine. And basically, that set the pattern for my drinking behavior for the rest of my life. I never sort of switched out of that, you know what I mean? I flipped around a lot, and I was very divine, you know, and very glamorous, as all women alcoholics are. And I, of course, drank what everybody left behind, you know, to boot. I grew up in the 50s, and I understood my responsibilities. And about what about all those poor sober children in Korea? You know, waste not, want not, and all that. So, you know, I was very clear about all that. Anyway, so that was it. You know, I was just this darling Deb, you know, holding up my image as I was throwing up on my shoes, throwing up on your shoes, actually. I threw up in my purse once in front of a policeman. Do you remember those days when you were so drunk you thought you were invisible? Remember those? He was giving us a hard time. I don't know about what. I don't, you know. And I just sort of went like, you know, I was just standing there being like a really nice girl, and I knew it was going to come up, and I just sort of went, you know, closed up my purse, you know, just stood there with a big smile, you know. I was a cheerleader, you know, and I was also codependent, and I didn't want to upset this guy, you know, at all. So, oh God, when I think about it. I was a blackout drinker from the very beginning, which I consider my first true gift from God. If you're a woman alcoholic like I was, you just as soon not know. Thank you very much. When I got here, they said more will be revealed. I was like, no, I don't really want to know anymore. Thanks, I'm an alcoholic. That's enough information. Thank you. I mean, really, there were so many mornings I woke up with skinned knees, and the possibilities were endless. I mean, you sort of go, oh, what are all these footballs doing in my room? The Broncos are in town? Who are the Broncos, I was really a zone out. Remember those mornings when you wake up, you open your eyes, and you go, where the hell am I, right? I had these little kind of like things to do as soon as you wake up to find the center of the universe, this little like program, and you of course your eyes would open up. Ow! Remember they were like, remember they used to hurt? They were like lined with sandpaper. Remember that? Oh God! And so the first thing you do is you check the sheets, because if you're on clean sheets, you're not home. Right. If you're on clean sheets, you're probably in a hotel or a hospital, That was good. One morning I woke up and I was obviously in a hotel somewhere, and I had no idea where I was, how long I'd been there, who I was with. I mean, and you can't make any like sweeping motions because you could be in there with a cast of thousands, So I look, and I'm looking over at the end table, or the night table, and I see a pack of matches, and I'm like, oh, thank God, any minute now I'm going to find out where the hell I am, So I very carefully and very, very cautiously lean over, and I'm like, my heart's pounding, where the hell am I? And I pick up this pack of matches, and I turn it around, and it says, Hong Kong Hilton. I went, oh, shit, man, I'm moving now, I'm really making some miles now. This is great. Let's go shopping, I mean, I didn't care, I mean, it didn't make any difference to me. It was just that didn't matter, that I didn't know how I got there, turns out I was at the Beverly Hilton, but oh well. I was in Hong Kong for a minute in my mind, and that was good enough, Anyway, I was just like, I was listening to the chapter 3 thing about what we tried. I never tried anything to stop drinking. I just went at it from the gate. I did not know that I had a drinking problem. I have enormous denial, which has changed completely. I mean, it occurred to me that if I could go 30 years and not know, with the way that my life was going, that I was not an alcoholic, there's a pretty good possibility I don't know a few other things too, So I believe in everything. And I tell people I sponsor that too, and they're like, what? And I go, you know what? I believe in everything. I do, honest to God. What do I know? I don't know if God's a guy or a girl or an energy or a force, or I don't know it doesn't matter. I know the lights are on. I know electricity exists. I don't know where it comes from. The lights are on. That's all I need to know. I'm sober, and I've had a spiritual awakening, and I've had spiritual experiences, and once you have them, you can't deny what they are. What are you going to do? Like, you can't go back from the knowing. One of the best things I ever heard in my whole life was, Bill Wilson and Carl Jung were sort of pals and whatever, and wrote back and forth, and Carl Jung said that he believed that alcoholics were the spiritual seekers of the world, and that we drank as in an attempt at self-healing, that made such perfect sense to me. And so I really studied a lot of what went on with him and his life and his breaking away from Freud and all that stuff. And basically, and I'm sure most of you know this, but his whole thing is that there are more aspects to man than just, physical, and that he believes very strongly in the spiritual. I saw Carl Jung's last interview with, before he died like in the mid-60s, and he did this interview with this guy from the BBC in England. And the interviewer is saying to him, well, Dr. Jung, you're very controversial, and people think that you're just nuts, and what is really the thing with this God business? What do you have to say about that? And Carl Jung paused for a minute. He goes, well, I don't have to say, I don't have anything to say. He says, because I know. And that was it. He said, I know. It's like, oh, okay. He knows. I mean, it's like, I know. I know that God's working in my life. I know that I've tried absolutely everything else on earth. I know that nothing else works. I know that every time I have called on a higher power or whatever, it has absolutely come through, and I'm one of those people that prays for parking spaces, and guess what? I get them, I mean, I wish I was a little more lofty than that, but, hey, it works, it works for me. So that's kind of what, that's just really been the process of the last 15 years of being a recovering woman alcoholic for me, it's really been a spiritual path. I was so surprised, 10 years ago to see in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that I had read, a number of times, I thought, it says in italics, this is a spiritual program. Oh my God, blow me over. Who knew, It's amazing. Anyway, I went off to college. I decided to become an art major because I didn't think they had much homework, and being the driven and directed person that I am. And I got thrown out of school after a couple of years for being just sort of a pain in the butt, and moved to New York City and went to work for American Airlines, which was, of course, my first association with AA. And and the weirdest thing happened while I was there. While I was living in New York, I got pregnant, which was shocking, being a cheerleader and all. And I had this kind of real life problem to deal with. So what I did was I moved to another town, that one. I moved to Atlanta, and I had this baby, and I gave her up for adoption, and that was the end of that. I sort of walked away from that experience like it was no big deal, I just had a few drinks about it for about 20 years. At any rate, I was down in Atlanta, and I stayed down there, and everybody was being hippies, and I wanted to be a hippie because I wanted to be like, there. And whatever, but of course I was this old preppy, so I really had this sort of conflict with trying to get like my flag dresses coordinated with my papagallos, and you know what I mean? I had this kind of whole look, this whole kind of thing. I was also introduced to non-habit forming marijuana at this time, and I was working as a trader for the stock exchange, and so I would smoke a little weed on the way to work just to take the edge off, And then I would go to work and I would make little tiny mistakes with other people's money. Oh dear, I would like buy them things they didn't want or sell things for them that they didn't own, It was great. It was sort of like Black Tuesday every day, People are calling up, my son's medical school education money is down the drain. I'm like, oops, sorry. I was having fun, it didn't matter. I had my priorities in order, whatever. I went down to the Bahamas one weekend during this period and just see my dad. He was also a compulsive gambler. I forgot to tell you that. And we went down there to, do some gambling and whatever. And I met Mr. Right number 944 that weekend, and or Mr. Right now, as it were. And Robert lived in Philadelphia. So 3 weeks later, I moved to Philadelphia because this, after all, was true love. It was 3 weeks. And, so I moved to Philadelphia thinking that I was going to move in and eventually marry this electrical engineer. And the weirdest thing happened. I unpacked and discovered I was living with the biggest drug dealer in Philadelphia. Oops! Again. But so the relationship didn't last too long because I'm really very paranoid and I hate that feeling. And but I loved Philadelphia. It was sort of close to where I grew up and whatever. So I stayed for a couple of years, and where I was introduced to non-habit forming cocaine. Now, what I want to tell you is booze was always my number one choice. It's just so convenient, It's just sort of there all the time, and it's legal, and it really sort of packs that punch, that I was always looking for, which was to get like, fucked up right now. That's what I didn't want anything terribly subtle. I wanted to be like blasted immediately, I tried pills, I tried Quaaludes, they made me fall down on my knees and puke, and I could certainly do that without a pill. Everything else was just way too subtle. I didn't understand. Grinding my teeth, it was just, all the up and down, and it was nothing. So, but I was very interested in this cocaine thing, I must say, and I'd heard so much about it, but I really had a problem being a finishing school girl and all with the thought of sticking something up my nose, It was so kind of indelicate, or unladylike or something, until I went to a party and someone rolled up a $100 bill and changed my point of view completely. on that, it was kind of like, oh, do I get this too? You know. So that was it, and you know, cocaine said hello to me, and so that was really kind of the deal for the next couple of years with my, I would say probably the next 7 years of my drinking and using, till I got sober, because it was, you know, I was always drinking, and then I was always in pursuit, certainly, as any, you know, self-respecting female cocaine addict will tell you. And I just, needless to say, did whatever was necessary to acquire cocaine, short of buying it, which was out of the question. You know, so I was in Brentwood, and I heard this woman, this lady district attorney, you know, she was really a lot of fun, standing up at the podium at Brentwood, you know, with her little lawyer suit on, and she said, "And that demon cocaine drove me to my knees." And I thought, yeah, me too, babe, but I don't think we're talking about the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. She should have been on her knees. Believe me, she was very uptight. But anyway. I am getting worse, I want you to know. I mean, do you know I actually sponsor people? That's really frightening, isn't it? Ah, they're all on Prozac, who cares? Anyway, I shock myself, believe me. Anyway, so my best friend, the Al-Anon, you know, suggested that we come out to California, and I thought, sure, what the hell, you know, I'll go anywhere. So we hop in the car, in my car, with a New Jersey license plate on it. These two kind of pseudo-hippies, you know, in cut-off jeans, lots of drugs in the car, lots of the real essentials, you know what I mean, like a little speed and some color-coded wrapped marijuana cigarettes, you know, turquoise was Maui Wowie and hot pink was, you know, I mean, how we used to do. And, you know, God forbid you should get, like, the wrong high, you know what I mean? Who knew? Yeah, point, you know, you were gone, like she said, yeah, you know, it's just, I really love that when people talk about that, like trying to maintain, because I knew any minute now I was going to get it. I was going to, here it comes, yeah, boy, you know, it's gone. It's like, I missed it by that much, you know, it's like, yeah, just there it goes. Oh, do you remember, do you remember when you were loaded and you'd have these, like, time warp things? How did we live through these? You'd be like, all of a sudden you'd go, am I in the middle of a conversation? Right? Is it my turn to talk? Right? Has it been quiet for a really long time? Right? Or worse. I mean, that used to happen to me 5 times a day. You stand there waiting for somebody to do something. Do I look familiar to anybody in the room? You know? The worst. Crazy. Anyway, we get out to California, and oh God, via Cuba, Mississippi, which was a whole other story that I won't even tell you about, but next year I'll tell you the Cuba, Mississippi story. It was hysterical. I don't have time. Anyway, so it takes us a month to get across the country, and I'll tell you about Cuba, Mississippi. It's very funny. We're in this car, because I love this group anyway, because they're such good laughers. You just get me going. Sharon and I are in this car. We're like these little, you know, these little hippie girls. We're like 20-ish something, not a 20. Who remembers? I don't know. I used to drink a little bit, you know. Anyway, and so we both have like our little long hair and our little T-shirts and these cut-off jeans, and we're, you know, loaded and drunk, and we're driving across the country, and we didn't have a map. We just figured we'd go, you know. And we were bright, and we end up driving along, and that drunk paranoia, right? And I'm driving along, I just got mixed up, you know, and it was on a Saturday night, and I ended up driving in some road in what I refer to as Nowhere, USA. Now, I grew up in New Jersey, where I got to tell you, everyone's packed in real close, so everything is somewhere. You know, you don't like leave one place and then not get into another place automatically in New Jersey. You're just You're always in a town. Well, we were in this place in the South somewhere where it says, leaving, Smithville, and then you're like nowhere. There's not a sign that says entering, Brownsville. There's nothing. You're nowhere, USA. So we're in this kind of nowhere, USA. It's like 10:30 on Saturday, 10:30 on Saturday night. And I'm driving along, and we're paranoid and drunk and just out of our minds and lost. And I can say, Sharon, I know we're in the South, we're going to die, and, oh, this is terrible. And, so anyway, the next thing I know is I hear this, oh, God, So I pull over, and I crack the window this much, and these wafts of marijuana smoke hit this state trooper in the face, boom, like this. And he leans over, and this is what he sounds like. He goes, I was in Mississippi, right? He goes, honey girl, he says, your front headlights out there, darling. He says, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to give you tickets, sweetheart. He says, but you go right down here to the next station, next town. It's Cuba, Mississippi, right down there. He says, if you promise me you'll go get that headlight fixed, I'll just let you go. And I'm like, oh, God, thank you, don't kill me, please, anything. So we drive down to the next town, which is Cuba, Mississippi. Well, Cuba, Mississippi, I'm sure is where they cast all the extras for the movie Deliverance. And I'm sure I heard strains of ding, 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 somewhere out there. It was very scary. And Cuba, Mississippi, is actually, there's Earl's gas station and cafe. It's actually one building. It's a one-story cinder block garage and cafe. Earl's garage, Earl's Cafe. This is, in fact, downtown, Cuba, Mississippi. Well, of course, being Saturday night, all the boys, from the area are hanging out downtown at Earl's Garage and Cafe. So Sharon and I drive in, drunk, paranoid, stoned, cutoffs, jersey plates, and, of course, no bras. And we drive in, and we see this gang of like 12 guys are hanging out downtown, on Saturday night. And we're like, and I'm looking at Sharon, and I said, Sharon, look at these people. I said, we're going to die. They're maniacs. They're going to find out we're Yankees and we have on no bras, and they're going to kill us. They're going to kill us and then rape us and then bury us, and probably in that order from the looks of this group, So we're trying to be very cool. So I pull into the station, and the leader of the pack, probably Earl, comes over to the car, and I'm like, it's the headlight, So I try to get him. I'm so scared that like my fingernails have dug, my hands are bloody. I'm like, I'm just so freaked out because I know any minute now he's going to realize that we are Yankee girls, we are stoned, and we have on no bra. And he's going to kill us. I've seen it in the movies. It's what happens down there. So I'm looking at Sharon like this, and I'm literally paralyzed with fear. Remember those feelings where like you knew any minute that it was over, the jig was up. So he calls a meeting of these guys. This was a very exotic car in Mississippi. It was a Pontiac. And so he calls a meeting to discuss how to get this whole thing done. And so the whole time, I'm like this. On the wheel, got my hands on the wheel, and I'm looking at Sharon. Like, I was frozen. We're going to die any minute. These guys are going to find out. We're going to be dead. She's like, so an hour, it seemed like later, Earl leans up over the hood of the car, and he goes, mash the dimmer switch. I said, what? He goes, mash the dimmer switch. What? It goes a little louder. Mash the dimmer switch. I said, Sharon, these are not even American words. I do not know what he is trying to tell me. I'm very frightened. I cannot communicate with this person. We're in big trouble now, babe, He's going, mash the dimmer switch. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to pull it together. Remember, this is like, okay, There's got to be some logic to why I'm here, you know? I mean, why am I here? Oh, okay, I'm here, we're on the light, it's the light. It has something to do with the lights. He wants something to do, it's something to do with the lights. Any minute now, I felt like I was on a game show, you know, like running out of time, you know? I mean, any minute now, I was going to find out I had on no bra, you know? So I think, okay, it's the lights. So I hit the blinker, you know, blinker up. He goes, no, mash the dimmer switch. So I blinker down. No, mash the dimmer switch. Oh my God, blinker up, blinker. This is all I can do is hit the blinker, I'm like this, blinker up, blinker down, blinker. I'm like paralyzed in fear. My heart is like in my throat. I'm gonna die because I cannot figure out what this guy wants, and I have on no bra, and I am like out of my mind. Finally, Sharon says, no, you idiot, the thing on the floor, it's the dimmer switch. I was like, oh, eureka, you know? Thank God. So what I did was I mashed the dimmer switch, you know? Okay, right. He comes over to the side of the car, and I shove my little money, you know, through the crack in the window. I said, by the way, how do we get back on the Interstate 10? And he goes like this. He screams at the top of his lungs. You go down the road to the left, and you make the right at the oak tree, and you get up. And I'm like, Jesus, man, stop screaming at me. And Sharon goes, shut up, you idiot. He doesn't know you're drunk. He thinks you're deaf. Been screaming for 20 minutes. Mash the dimmer switch, you know? Oy, I'm telling you. I got out to California and went to work as a Kelly girl, and I got this job at Warner Brothers Music. So boom, I'm in the music biz. Dun, 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 you know, this is great. I'm working on Sunset. It was blah, 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 you know, I was having a great old time. I, of course, had absolutely no idea what I was doing, but didn't matter. I was very cute and very funny. And I worked in music publishing, and it was the area of music where we work with writers, and we had a staff of writers that was really hot, and we couldn't do anything wrong. And so we went from this little tiny division of Warner Brothers of like 12 or 15 people, I think, when I got there. And like in 6 months, we had 35 people, and like, you know, and now Warner Brothers is the largest music publishing company in the world. But anyway, so I just sort of got caught up in all this growth, and they kept promoting me and whatever. I did nothing. It was great. But all the writers used to hang out in my office and smoke weed and whatever, so I guess they figured if I kept the writers happy and they kept writing, what the hell, give her a paycheck, you know? She's not hurting anybody. My father died during this period, and it was the first time I felt as though something was really missing, and I had to get the answer. Didn't know the question, but I went off on the search, you know, and I went back to our family farm in upstate New York and hung out there with my grandma, thinking that I was going to come to some, you know, something was going to fix it there. And then I moved back to New York City and went to work for another record company, and that didn't work. Then I went out on tour. I was tour manager for Jethro Tull for 6 months, and big, huge tour, and that definitely didn't do it. And I ended up back here working for the Eagles, and one of the Eagles did it for about a minute, but he fixed it. And shortly after that, I moved over to Catalina Island because I had fallen in love with the guy that owned the Chi-Chi Club. And perfect. Now, Avalon, I want to tell you, is a perfect place if you're an alcoholic because everybody that's living there has lost their driver's licenses for 502s on the mainland. So you just move to a town that's a mile square so you can drink and crawl home if you need to. You know, nothing is really like too far away, you know. So I just drank and used more, and I was just, you know, just sort of on, you know, doing my story, bottoming out. I burned up all the oxygen in my bloodstream one night. I went out and drank so much tequila that I burned up all the oxygen in my bloodstream, and they gave me 300 pounds of oxygen. Well, the next day I thought, Jesus, 300 pounds of anything will get my attention for a minute, you know? And I thought, I better take a look at this. And so I decided that I shouldn't drink tequila anymore because you're never really sure if the worm has shit in the bottle, which is apparently what happened to me. So, you know, I had tainted tequila, obviously. And so I gave up drinking tequila and anything else with dead animals in it. I was paring down, you know. Avalon didn't work out, and so what I decided to do was move to Houston because now, rather than mellowing out on the island, which is what I thought I'd do when I got over there, I was going to go someplace and be rich and famous and get, you know, be a big frog in a small pond all of a sudden. And LA was way too scary, so I I moved to Houston and became a disc jockey. Now, what happened was this guy who I went to work for, I almost drove him nuts, and because I told him I could type and I couldn't, and I made lots of mistakes. He had a big tip sheet that everybody all over the country was buying and whatever, and part of my job before I became a disc jockey when I was a program coordinator was to type up this tip sheet of all the what's added, what's not, you know what a tip sheet is, and send it out to the printer who printed it up and then mailed it out and whatever to the thousands and thousands of people that were interested in this information. Well, the paper always had like a little empty spot. It just drove me crazy, you know? So I started filling in the lyrics of popular songs every week, and he thought that was okay. And one week I put in the lyric of a song called You Should Be Dancing by Leo Sayer, and the lyric goes, you drag me around like a dog on a leash. And I typed it up and sent it off to the printer, and 2 days later Bill comes in and all the blood has drained from his face. And he goes, honey, do you check your typing before it goes to the printer? And I said, well, of course I do, you asshole. I'm thinking under my breath, I'm so arrogant. And he goes, well, what's this? And he shows me the tip sheet that's already been mailed, and it says, what I've written is, you drag me around like a dong on a on a leash, which is sort of an interesting concept in itself, but it's not exactly what I was supposed to be doing. So about 2 days later, he came in with this sort of tear in his eye, and he said, you're a fabulous kid. Obviously, you can't be the coordinator here, but I want to put you on the air. I think you'd be a great disc jockey. So reluctantly, I become CJ the DJ. Oh, God, isn't that just too much? So when you're new in the radio business, what they do is they put you on in the middle of the night, the theory being that, of course, when you screw up, inevitably you do, there aren't that many people listening in the middle of the night. So I'm all annoyed, that I have to go to work at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then about the third night I'm there, I'm thinking, shit, I can stay out of Corky's, which is my favorite gin mill in Houston, and just get all drunk and run around and go crazy all night long, and then I'll just, go to work at 2. I'll snort a little cocaine or something and wake me up, and I'll be ready to go to work at 2 in the morning and whatever. And then after about 4 or 5 days, I realized who else was up at 3 and 4 in the morning. You guys. You're all out there, You're fighting with your girlfriends and boyfriends and puking out the window and driving home, or you're at home being very mellow, listening to your favorite girl DJ with your headphones on cranked up to like 11, You're drunk and your ears are bleeding and you're, So I found my people, it was one drunk to just give me a microphone, forget it, honey. I went nuts. So I know you can't imagine that at all. So I'm saying fuck on the air, of course, because I'm drunk, and I'm repeating myself all the time, and I'm bringing in records from home, because I'm sick of playing the same old shit. And one night I got so ticked off. All they wanted to hear was Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, and Ted Nugent, and I didn't want to play that shit anymore. And I opened up the mic and I screamed at the top of my lungs at 50,000 watts, "You fucking redneck assholes drive me crazy!" I said, "Here I am trying to expand your musical horizons, and you want to hear the same old shit over and over again? What the hell's the matter with you?" That self-righteous, drunk, right? Because I would rather be right than happy any day. How can you be so stupid? And all of a sudden I had this moment of clarity. Ooh, dear, It was sort of like Cuba, Mississippi flashed through my eyes, And I turned down the mic and I thought, oh my God. Well, I don't know about you, but my emotions used to go bing, 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 Of course they don't anymore, do they? So I was like screaming, "You rednecks!" And I was like, oh my God, shame, remorse for about 2 seconds. And then I went, well, fuck them anyway, Big attitude. And the phones are going boing, boing, So I pick up the phone and I go, KILT, and this guy goes, right on, mama. Woo, honey. That was it. That was all I needed, someone to co-sign this behavior, you know what I mean? I get to abuse these jerks and get paid for it. I'm in love, this is great. That was it. I was a wild woman. It was carte blanche every night. Fuck you, fuck governor. I don't even know his name, but if he's in Texas, he's an asshole. And I was terrible. I went in one night after drunk as a skunk, and I'm like, and it just happened. I just sort of went, and I puked on the air. Now, I told that story for years before I thought about the people listening, you know. I mean, just think about what it used to be like when you're really drunk and, you know, you're sitting at home late at night, got your headphones on, smoking a little weed, you know, drinking a little wine, just really getting into it, and all of a sudden you hear something like, you know. I mean, that's a rush. Woo, you know. Wow. Very bad. The best story is I went in on a Monday night and announced to the entire world that I had fucked a doobie brother over the weekend. I know everybody was waiting for that piece of information. And then I said, and the first person that calls in and guesses which doobie brother it was, I'll give you a new Doobie Greatest Hits album. Twice again as big as this meeting. This big high stage and this big podium, and I'm looking over all these people, and I'm having a great old time. And because I always do, you know, and I'm laughing and giggling, and ha 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 ha. And you may have heard a few rock and rollers have gotten sober lately.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And I'm, and I fucked a doobie brother, and I look down in the meeting, and there are two doobie brothers sitting in the meeting. So it's kind of like, I look down at them. They look up at me. I look down at them. They look up at me and they went, was it us? I'm like, I don't remember. I think they looked at each other and went, was it you? You know. Oh, God. Anyway, I gotta tell you, I love speaking at meetings. I love making people laugh. When I got here almost 15 years ago, I had the good fortune that the night I'm going to wrap this up because I've only got a couple minutes. Although I could go on all night. I've got so many stories. The very first meeting I went to was June 12, 1978, and it was Pacific Palisades. And this lady, Betty Neeson, who I had met in a beauty shop, told me that she was an alcoholic. And about 6 weeks later, I realized that was what was wrong with me, and I called her up, and I was, oh, God, you know. She took me to a meeting, and I walked into this enormous room, similar to this, you know, a lot of people laughing and giggling, having a great old time. And I was just so full of shame and remorse and confusion about what had gone on and whatever. And she introduced me to her little friend Beulah, who's about this tall with flaming red hair and a very gravelly voice. And Beulah looks up at me and she goes, oh, hi, honey, are you an alcoholic? And I went, oh, God, I don't know. I don't know. She goes, oh, be one, it's fun. I had the good fortune that night to hear a man speak by the name of Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan had 10 years of sobriety at that time. He was an Irish Catholic like me. He had gone to Notre Dame. My people went to Notre Dame. He had actually gotten thrown out of Notre Dame, which really impressed me even more. He was from Texas. I lived in Texas. And he had puked on a few important people in the Pentagon. This was my kind of guy, you know. And what happened was he got up to the podium that night, and this is what he did. And there are people here that remember him and will absolutely contest that this is what happened. He got up to the podium and he goes like this. Stands up here and he goes, hot damn, get it on, baby. He says, I'm telling you, life is in session. Come on aboard. He says, honey, this disease will cut you off too short to hang up, baby. He says, hot damn, get it on. He says, baby, I was such a mess out there. I couldn't score in a woman's penitentiary with a pocket full of pardons, honey. He says, I'm telling you, hot damn, get it on, baby. He says, you people in these meetings make me nuts. He says, I swear to God, you say you don't like booze? Baby, I love booze. I love everything about that whiskey, honey. I love the snap of that paper. I love the smell of that booze, honey. I loved it going down. I loved it coming up. Hot damn, get it on. He'd say. And all of a sudden I went, hallelujah. I'll be one. I'll do it. What really happened was I started laughing. You know, I walked in there crying, sobbing, freaked out. And I started laughing. And as soon as I kind of let go into the joy and whatever, of the moment, all of the love and energy in that room filled me up, and I realized that my whole life I'd felt like a jigsaw puzzle piece that never saw the front of the box. You know, I never knew where I fit, and at that moment, I was home. In the midst of that sea of 400 or 500 people, that's where I was. I was okay. I asked Jim Ryan to give me a birthday cake on my first birthday, and he was so excited. He just was beside himself. He'd say, honey, you're the only pigeon I ever had that stayed sober a whole year. Baby, I'm going to be there to give you that cake. It's going to be great. Hot damn, get it on, he'd say. So the night of my birthday comes, and he's up there, and he was part of what I call the grown-ups, which were the Betty Neeson and Jack, my sponsor, and her husband, and the Littles, and Jack Bailey and Jean Bailey and all these people that we've lost. I was so fortunate to just have these wonderful grown-up people in my life because I needed parents, and I needed a lot of them when I got here. And everybody was there, and Jack was there. I mean, Jim was there, and it was just fabulous, and we're laughing and crying and having a great old time. And he gives me this birthday cake, which meant so much to him. You know, I'd stayed sober a whole year, and I was just flipped out and whatever. It was just cosmic and great, and we laughed and cried and had a great old time. And he went home that night and dropped dead of a heart attack. Now, I thought, I really took it personally for 10 minutes. I figured, hey, it's my birthday. What, are you kidding me? You know, I thought God had done something to me, you know, because I thought that the event of the evening was my birthday. And then it occurred to me that obviously the big event of the evening was that it was Jim Ryan's last night on earth. And then I got it that God must have loved Jim Ryan so much that he put Jim Ryan right where Jim would choose to be if he knew he only had 3 hours to live. He'd want to be at that AA meeting with all of the grown-ups that he got sober with, doing what he was doing, which was giving someone a birthday cake because she got sober and stayed sober a whole year. The only pigeon he ever had stayed sober a whole year. And then I started to understand that God must have loved me so much that he let me be the vehicle of his work, just like it says in that prayer. And that's when I started to understand that what we're doing here is a spiritual thing. It has been my experience in almost 15 years, and, you know, agree with this or not, it doesn't matter. This is just for me. I think the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous are steps to God, leading to God. It has, you know, I don't take better inventory. I don't give better inventory. I'm not a better sponsor. I'm not a better secretary. I'm not a better baby. I'm not a better alcoholic. I don't write better. I don't speak better. I don't do anything else. What has absolutely kept me sober for as long as I've been sober, and I've had some challenges, believe me, in my life, is my relationship with God. And all it has done is gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. It is something that happens to you. I want you to know that. You can't work any harder at your sobriety than staying sober and coming to meetings and being of service in AA. You cannot work any harder at that. It drives me crazy when I hear people say, oh, he works a good program. And fuck you, how do you know? You know what I mean? What's a good program, you know? Are you sober? You're working a good program, you know? You pray, you meditate, you do the things that are suggested, you're working a good program, you know? I mean, it's just unbelievable, some of the things that go on in AA now. It drives me nuts. It's a God program. Get in touch with the God of your understanding. Hang on to that God of your understanding, because I'm telling you, baby, it is going to be the absolute thing that saves your butt. You know, someday there aren't going to be meetings, there aren't going to be people, there's not going to be anything. You are going to have challenges in your life, not because you're an alcoholic, but because you're a human being. You know, and that's just the way it is. I certainly don't know what God has in store for me. Lord knows the last 15 years have been amazing. I don't know what he's got in store for any of you either, but I'm telling you, tonight before I go to sleep, I'm going to pray that we all stay sober long enough to find out. Thank you.
Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.